What is up, you guys? This is Mini Superheroes Today.
Hey guys, Jonathan here, aka Mini Superheroes Today, and today we have a video called WandaVision, the good, the bad, and the disappointing. Today was the release of the WandaVision season finale. I got up early this morning to watch it, and I've been talking with some friends, Zachary and Tim, shout out to those guys, but just kind of formulating my thoughts around this series, because it was obviously so groundbreaking for Marvel, but there were some things about it that ultimately I found disappointing. So in today's video, I want to kind of walk through a brief history of what WandaVision is, what it became, what it means for the future of the MCU, and just some general overall thoughts of how this show stuck the landing. So if you're into content like this, be sure to hit like and subscribe down below, and without further ado, let's start taking a closer look at WandaVision. So I feel that WandaVision is good. In fact, probably even great. It has to be among the best superhero shows of the modern era. But with that being said, I do feel like it leaves some cards on the table of things that probably could have, should have happened, and just generally could have been better. You know, one of the big hallmark things of the MCU is setting up future shows or movies or whatever Marvel content is at this point by leaving us some Easter eggs. And we definitely get that with this show, and I'm going to talk about all of that. But I feel like there are just some glaring plot things here with previous references to the MCU, future references, that really they just don't sit well with me, and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Not that it makes me think the show was bad, because again, I think the show was great, but just some things that I question how they didn't get picked up in the writer's room, whether to resolve certain things or how to actually land certain ideas that were put forth. But we're going to get into all of that, and with that being said, there are spoilers in this video. So if you've watched to this point and you have not seen the season finale of WandaVision, now is where you want to jump off the ship, and you can come back after you've seen it, because we are going to talk some serious spoilers from here on out. So for some backstory on WandaVision, this was not intended to be the first release of the Disney Plus MCU shows. In fact, it was supposed to be Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is coming out very shortly on Disney Plus, and don't worry, we'll talk about that when the time comes. But for WandaVision to be the first one out of the gate, I think it actually ended up helping the show. The way the first two episodes started out when we got them both on the same day, I think it really set a great precedent for what the Disney Plus Marvel content could be like, and very much what it should be like. It needs to be different from the movies. The storytelling approach needs to be different. The way that we learn about our characters needs to be different. And the fact that we opened up in a 50s style sitcom and got exactly that really set us up for some great storytelling from WandaVision from the whole way out. So the fact that this opened up so differently and it became such a different piece of content right off the bat, again, I think really helped the show in the long run. So now let's talk about some of the good things, and I might even go as far as to say the great things about WandaVision. The new structure of storytelling really sets a great precedent for the Disney Plus shows, as I was saying just a few moments ago. The fact that we now get hours upon hours to learn about our characters and tell stories differently versus a traditional, 2-hour and some change Marvel movie really opens up the door for how we can learn about these characters. Obviously, we get to see some incredible acting in this show. Definitely Elizabeth Olsen steals the show. She shows that she has so much range. She is such a talented actress, and I think that she has a very bright future, not only in Marvel, but outside of the MCU because of this show. I really hope she wins some awards for her acting, because she did an incredible job. Definitely not to be forgotten is Paul Bettany as Vision. He did an incredible job bringing Vision to life in a brand new way. He's playing the Vision that we know and love, but without his memories, and it leaves us with this eerie sense of not really sure what's going on as the show begins from the start. So he did an incredible job as well. Catherine Hahn as the villain, Agatha Harkness, did an amazing job. She's always been great in the shows she's been in the past, even as Doc Ock in Into the Spider-Verse, but here she plays this likable villain in the early stages and then this twisted maniacal villain toward the end. She does an incredible job, and I really feel like she steals a lot of the scenes she's in, just like Elizabeth Olsen does. Speaking of stealing scenes, we have to talk about Evan Peters. Him showing up in the episode where he knocks on the door was absolutely incredible. I think it took a lot of us by surprise, and he's an incredible actor, from American Horror Story into the X-Men films and now into this. He really always brings a certain charm when he's on screen, but I do have some problems with his appearance in WandaVision, and we'll talk about that in a little later segment where I talk about some of the disappointing things about this show. Of course, we have some great supporting characters. Randall Park is incredible as Jimmy Woo, and it's so great to see him back. He deserves his own spin-off series, or to just appear in more Marvel series in general. Kat Dennings does a great job as Darcy Lewis. It's a character that I have notably not really cared for in the Thor films, but she does a great job in this series, and I think it goes to show that the right script and the right treatment can really turn a character around entirely, as it does with Darcy Lewis in WandaVision. I also want to shout out Teyonah Parris as Monica Rambeau. She does such an amazing job. I feel like because we only knew Monica as a little girl from her brief appearance in Captain Marvel, we know so much more about this character now, and she did such an incredible job. Of course, with her getting powers too, it's going to be great to see where she falls in line with the future of the MCU. One other thing I have to talk about as far as the good parts of this show are the visuals. I mean, oh my god, the magic visuals, the transitions, the Sky Dome, everything just looks so incredible in this show, and I'm really glad to see that Marvel isn't skimping out just because their TV budget, if you will. I think they've done an incredible job of making these shows something memorable and fun as far as the visuals are concerned. Now we have to talk about the bad, and there's always going to be bad things, even when we're talking about great Marvel properties. I think there are bad things about Endgame. I think there are bad things about Infinity War, but does that mean the entire projects are bad? No, not at all. So I do want to preface that when I kind of break down these things that I think were bad about WandaVision, or bad elements, I'm not saying WandaVision was bad. So with a story as big as WandaVision is, right? I mean, Wanda is creating her own, pocket verse in a TV show, plus we have these supporting characters, plus we gotta figure out what's going on with Evan Peters. It's a lot to tackle in just a few episodes. Now, WandaVision does have the benefit of having more time than maybe a traditional Marvel movie would to tell this story, but it's still a lot to unpack, even if the show was 20 episodes long, which I feel like it would start to overstay its welcome, but you get what I mean, that there's a lot to unpack here. And so with that, it makes it difficult to stick the landing no matter how you do it. You're never going to be able to please everybody, right? There's going to be certain fans that feel it should have gone this way, certain fans that feel it should have gone another way, but it's going to be very difficult to please everybody, and I do give WandaVision credit where credit's due for sticking the landing, but I feel like there was so much to pack into this story that we'll talk about it in the disappointing segment of this video. But I feel like there was so much to stick into this series that it's very hard to make sure everything resolves the way it needs to, or at least make sure it makes sense in the context of the bigger MCU. Now, my other problem with WandaVision, as far as the bad things go, goes to Agatha Harkness. Not the way she's presented, not the way she's acted, but really just the way she's interjected into the MCU as a whole. It's no secret that Marvel has an issue with villains, whether it's killing them off too early, not developing them enough in the case of somebody like Malekith, but I feel like Agatha had so much more potential, and the way that they kind of write her off at the end really just feels like a way that they could bring her back if they want, but if they don't want to bring her back, they don't have to. And I feel like for a villain as powerful and as closely connected to Wanda, both in the comics and in WandaVision, as Agatha was, it just felt very underwhelming to me for her to have received the ending she did. And we're going to talk about that again in the next segment here, but I just wanted to lay out that I feel like Agatha was not handled as well as she could have been. And now we're definitely into the controversial part of this video, and that is talking about the disappointing elements. Now, I feel like this is probably the part where there's going to be some heat, so drop some comments down below whether you agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. But the first disappointing part I have to talk about is Doctor Strange. Now, I feel like WandaVision was a show where fans got their expectations up a lot, And, you know, there were even talks at one point of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield showing up in this series as their respective Spider-Mans. And while I never thought that was going to happen, they literally name-dropped Doctor Strange as the Sorcerer Supreme in the final episode, saying that Wanda, being the Scarlet Witch, is even more powerful than Doctor Strange, and yet he's nowhere to be seen to investigate here. It really makes no sense to me because we know he's living in New York, at least at the Sanctum Sanctorum, you know, repairing it, or he's at least in the vicinity. And this is all taking place in New Jersey, a matter of miles away. How is this not on his radar to pick up and investigate, not only in the finale, where, you know, Wanda is gaining all her powers, but as she's setting up her pocket universe bubble? That's magic that's, like, off the charts, and for Doctor Strange to not even raise an eyebrow at that across any episode is really jarring to me. Now, I will say that with the caveat that, again, this was not supposed to be the first MCU Disney Plus show. This was supposed to come out right before Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, so it kind of makes me wonder if the ending was changed. If Doctor Strange was supposed to show up in this, but because Multiverse of Madness is still so far away, they had to retcon it in filming and change it. It just feels to me like a very dropped opportunity, and unfortunately it did not land well with me, and the more I think about it, the more it really kind of disappoints me that Doctor Strange was not in this show at all, beyond a quick name drop at one point. To kind of further cement this, Agatha brings out a Darkhold book at one point, which, as we know from the first Doctor Strange movie, is a very big deal. One of the Darkhold books goes missing in that first Doctor Strange movie, well, more specifically a page from it, and the entire plot of the movie goes around finding out who has it, stopping them from using whatever magic they're going to use from it, and so on. So you mean to tell me Agatha, in the final episode here, just manifests this book to talk about the Scarlet Witch, and it doesn't trip Doctor Strange's trigger? Or maybe they couldn't afford Benedict Cumberbatch, so they couldn't get Benedict Wong to show up as Wong? It just makes no sense that nobody from the Sanctum Sanctorum or Doctor Strange's world showed up to investigate this at any point. It feels like such a glaringly obvious omission, and it just doesn't make sense to me. On my final point about Doctor Strange, I feel like it actually cheapens Doctor Strange's character. In Avengers Infinity War, when Bruce Banner crashes through the Sanctum Sanctorum's window and Doctor Strange and Wong walk over and, you know, they're looking down at him, and Doctor Strange hears Bruce say Thanos is coming, Doctor Strange's response is, "Who?" Now, we're told that Doctor Strange is the protector of the Sanctum Sanctorum, the protector of Earth, and you mean to tell me that Thanos is not on his radar at all? Now, granted, he knows about the Infinity Stones, but he has no clue from nobody that Thanos is out there wrecking things. I know that for plot purposes it has to be that way, but that's the first time Doctor Strange had no idea something was going on. But this is the second time something's happened for Doctor Strange like this. Now somebody's using this unbelievable, unprecedented magic just a mere few miles past the border of where Doctor Strange lives, and he's nowhere to be seen to investigate it. It just feels very cheap, it doesn't make sense in universe, and it does leave me feeling disappointed. So for point number 2 about the disappointment, I have to talk about Agatha. You know, Wanda ultimately kind of mind controls Agatha again and makes her the nosy neighbor, as we see in the finale, but just a few minutes later, she takes the entire pocket universe down, and what happens to Agatha then? Is she just walking around as a mind-controlled woman who thinks that this is all going on, or that this all happened and now it isn't happening, so she's just like a crazy lunatic walking around on the streets? Or, when Wanda closed the pocket universe, did Agatha go back to normal? We're left to assume that Wanda absorbed Agatha's power, but we don't really know, and I feel like it leaves a lot more questions than answers. Again, to kind of go back to Doctor Strange, since that's the point of reference for magic in this universe, at least in the post-credits scene, we see that Mordo is still out there hunting down other wizards or, you know, Doctor Strange-like magicians. So at least it tells us what's going on. We have no clue how Agatha's story resolves, and for such an important, powerful new character, it feels very, very sloppy to me to not address what's going to go on with her character. Even if she ended up in like a magic jail cell or something, at least tell us what's going on. We literally have no idea what happened with Agatha at the end of this show, and it feels very sloppy to me. And for my final point, definitely the most disappointing is Evan Peters. When Evan Peters showed up and we are all kind of left the same way Wanda is, like, what's going on here? You know, why is Pietro recast? It left us feeling like, wow, is this how the X-Men ultimately get tied into this universe? Like, what's going on here? What is the idea? And when it all comes down to it, it ends up just being a boner joke. Literally, his name is Ralph Boner. And it just left me feeling so disappointed, because if Pietro could have been anybody, then they should have cast anybody. The reason they cast Evan Peters, quite clearly, is because they wanted to generate the fan buzz of getting everybody thinking that, oh, maybe this is how the X-Men get tied in. Then ultimately it has nothing to do with the X-Men, and Evan Peters as Ralph Boner is just some guy. Honestly, it gave me big flashbacks to Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin, where you get this world-class actor, Ben Kingsley, in to play this iconic Iron Man villain, and you turn it into a joke at the end of the day. The only difference here is that they literally went for a phallic joke with Evan Peters, and they trolled us all so hard with this. And in some cases, I've learned to live with the Mandarin twist, especially because we know he's not the real Mandarin, but this just felt like a very hard cash grab, and it's something that does not sit well with me in the greater span of the MCU. I would go as far as to say it's my biggest disappointment in the entire MCU, and if this show would have been a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 for me, this has to take off an entire point, because it just feels like such a needless play at building hype for nothing, and then when it turns out to be nothing, they end up just making a joke about it, which I just don't like, and it just leaves me feeling very, very disappointed, honestly. That's all I have to say about it. So with that being said, guys, that is my retrospective on WandaVision and my review. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think, so be sure to drop a comment below. Let me know if you completely agree with any of my ideas, or if I'm just off my rocker and going completely nuts. Needless to say, I do have to say thank you to Marvel for branching out and giving us more MCU content. At this point, we're basically getting something new from Marvel every week of the year for the rest of the calendar year, so it's pretty incredible. It's great to be along for the ride, and even when there are disappointing moments like the last 3 points we talked about, this show still offered a lot, and I had a lot of fun watching it. It's been so great to be back on the Marvel train, and it's great to be making content for you guys. So drop a comment below, let me know what you think, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.
If you liked what you saw and you liked what you heard, feel free to click that subscribe button for more LEGO videos coming in the near future.